for the Bills now, they're still in the mix, despite not maybe being to the level they thought they would be. You're still there. They're still going to make the tournament. They still should win their division. And as Doug mentioned, as long as you got Josh Allen, you're in every game. Will it all just be on his shoulders, or do they have a complete team that can compete with the rest of the AFC?
All right, welcome in. Week 16 is in the books. We're looking forward to Week 17. This is the final hurry up for 2021 and to get you guys ready for the new year in the NFL. On your left, we have former Buffalo Bills general manager Doug Whaley, and on your right, we have former New York Giants executive Marc, now of NFL Network. Fellas, appreciate you guys coming out. And we're going to start with the playoff race in the AFC. And I think the biggest development coming out of Week 16, which was the Buffalo Bills reasserting themselves as a real contender in the conference and going and slaying the dragon. Obviously, 3 weeks ago, what happened, it looked at least like the Patriots may have reasserted themselves in the AFC East. The Bills come back going to Foxborough and win by 2 scores over a really good New England Patriots team. And so, Doug, I'm going to start with you, and it's a pretty simple question here. Like, does this make the Bills the top contender to the Chiefs in the AFC? Chiefs obviously having won the conference the last 2 years.
It does if they decide to stick with how they are built. They are not built to run the ball, and they just got to understand that and accept the fact. I know that there's a lot of pressure out there from the media and maybe from people inside that organization that we have to get some semblance of a running game. But that's just not how they're built. They're built to go the way Josh Allen is. Let's just put it on him and let him dictate how we're going to go, not only through the air, but with his legs. That combination is lethal. And you saw it yesterday Sunday in that game. That guy is a handful. He is hard to contain. And not only because of his skill set, but he plays the game the way he's like a throwback quarterback. So everybody talks about let Russ cook. I think in Buffalo, they should just say, let Josh fry.
I mean, Marc, and looking at it, like, does this look like the type of team that can make a run? Because, they were in the AFC title game a year ago. They've had some more ups and downs, and you've been in this position before, having won championships. It feels to me a little bit like, the last 3-4 years, the team that was sort of climbing. And you get to an AFC title game. Now you're dealing with expectations. This is a different deal, right? Like, it's different than when you're the team trying to make your way up. You become the hunted. It feels at least like it's been a little bit different for them. So, like, do you think maybe part of like the ups and downs of this season for them have been sort of changing where the change in where they are in the hierarchy in the conference?
Yeah, it is fun. When my early days with Philly, when we drafted Donovan McNabb, and we weren't very good, and then all right, then you make the playoffs. Everybody's happy. All right, but then the next year the expectations are you got to win a playoff game. All right, you do that, everybody's happy. Then there's stuff to build up to, and that process of rising is what's fun. But then once you start getting to another level, if you don't reach that, then it's not fun anymore. It's kind of with the Giants after you win a Super Bowl, like anything else, you're not happy at all. So kind of with Buffalo, I kind of look at them similar to those early Eagles teams that I was on where, okay, you got the Patriots, you got to get to their level. You get Josh Allen, you get his development, you start winning games, you make the playoffs, you make it to the AFC Championship game, and anything less, you're just not satisfied with. So for the Bills now, they're still in the mix, despite not maybe being to the level they thought they would be. You're still there. They're still going to make the tournament. They still should win their division. And as Doug mentioned, as long as you got Josh Allen, you're in every game. It's just, can he hero ball his way for 2-3 playoff games and the Super Bowl? So that's the big question for the Bills is, will it all just be on his shoulders, or do they have a complete team that can compete with the rest of the AFC?
Well, Marc, let's say that's sort of interesting. That's sort of interesting. Like what you mentioned there was like the style of play with Josh Allen, right? Like, and like kind of how there were those hero ball plays at the end of the game. He has the flip to Stephon Diggs, the juke on Jamie Collins at the end of the game, and making those like sort of like just huge big box type of plays towards the end of the game. Like, do you worry about him having to lean back on that stuff now? Because there was some level, I think, of concern. Like, does he play that style too much? Like, do you think, like, watching him play, that maybe he has found a little bit of a balance where he's making the routine play like more often and then able to mix the hero ball in a little bit more?
Yeah, that's the optimal thing, right? Remember early on in his career where he would do what in the world is he doing? He would still have those plays where you just don't see that as much anymore, really not much anymore, where, as long as he has that element, and there's only a few guys in the league, Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers and Lamar, when he's on, Kyler Murray can make those, I'm taking over, I'm better than everybody on the field, and I'm just taking over sort of plays. But you don't want that to be a sustained part of your offense, kind of like Mahomes was earlier in the year when they were in a rut where every play for him where he was just hero balling it. It's better when you run your offense and your offense is running efficiently. Oh, and then by the way, I can break your back with a play that only I can make, or only a couple guys in the league can make to win games. So the better that the Bills can run the ball and run a functioning offense, and then, oh yes, Josh Allen bails them out when he needs to, the better a team they'll be, and the more hard they will be to defend.
And Doug, I want to ask you about the same thing I just touched on with Marc at the beginning there, which was sort of the pressure on the Bills, and like dealing with expectations. And you obviously were part of championship teams in Pittsburgh where you saw like what that can do to a group. And like now all of a sudden, just winning 11 and 12 games, like that's not good enough anymore. You have to look a certain way. When you get to the playoffs, you have to advance. Like, do you think that's part of the process for Buffalo now too? Like where, again, like, you go through that loss to New England and it's like, all right, like, well, maybe here we go again. And maybe they're a flash in the pan. Like, I don't know if you've like sort of noticed anything about the way that they've handled being kind of at the top of the hill now versus being, again, the kind of like group this climb.
I think the game against New England really, I think, propelled them into that stratosphere of saying, okay, we aren't going to take a step back. Especially when you look at how New England dominated them that first contest. If they would have came back this second contest in New England and lost, I wouldn't even say got dominated like they did before, but lost, that I think would have been a major dent to their psyche. Like going in there after getting embarrassed and handling them and really removed all doubt about the game. It was close, but it was really in the Bills' hands. And when they needed to make play or score or eat up clock with a long drive, they were able to do it. So I think that gives them a boost of confidence. Now, for me, though, the biggest Achilles heel in the Buffalo Bills arsenal is going to be that run defense. If you even look back to last year when Kansas City came in there and put up 200 plus yards, you got the Colts that put up 200 plus yards, and New England put 200 plus yards with a physical between the box running style. If someone adopts that in the playoffs, that's where Buffalo really has to come up with an answer. And that, like I said, I think may be their Achilles heel.
All right, so I'm going to put 2 and 2 together then there, Marc, right? Like, so Doug says like that they have to lean on Josh and they need to stop worrying about establishing the run game. And then the run defense is the Achilles heel. I've heard a lot of people over the years say, like, it's not a coincidence when a team that doesn't run the ball well can't stop the run on the other side. And maybe some of that stuff goes back to the summer, right? The way the offense is practicing when you're going good on good, sometimes maybe they're not seeing as much of it. Like, if you have a run defense issue at this point of the year, and Doug pointed out, he's correct. They had the trouble with New England. They had trouble with Indianapolis. They've had those issues. Is that correctable? As an Achilles heel for a team, is that correctable at this point in the season?
Well, it's about the personnel you have. And does Buffalo have the personnel up front, namely the Ed Olivers of the world? We're looking at you to get better. And that's a lot of times when you talk about teams and getting better at something. But if you just don't have the talent and the personnel to get better at something, there's not enough scheming or planning or coaching that will overcome the lack of players to get better at whatever that deficiency is. And even the other day, they got ran on. The Patriots ran on them pretty well. But even trying to force Mac Jones to make plays, they still ran on them. So are they good enough? Are they physical enough? Are they talented enough? Do they have the right personnel to get better? And, that still remains to be seen with the team.
All right. So like I want to look at other teams in the AFC too. And I think you look at it feels, at least for most of the season, it's been Kansas City and everybody else. Over the last few weeks with the Chiefs emerging, feels like some teams have come back to the pack. And so there's one team out there that I have my eye on that I think could wind up getting to that top level. Buffalo, of course, we talked about them. The other team I've kind of got my eye on, Doug, is the Tennessee Titans. And I just look at a team that was in the AFC title game 2 years ago. I think they're a well-coached team. I think Vrabel's done a really nice job there. And I see them starting to get healthy. A.J. Brown showed what he could do on Thursday night against San Francisco. They could be getting Derrick Henry back in the next couple of weeks. So, do you think Tennessee could be the team that could wind up challenging the Chiefs in the AFC? And do you think maybe going through this, right? Like the fact that they had to win without A.J. Brown, they had to win without Derrick Henry, they had to win with a beat up Julio Jones. Like, do you think that in the long run, like when we get to January, that could wind up benefiting a team like the Titans?
I do think so, because like you said, to take your stalwart on offense out of the equation and still be able to at least stay in the picture and not falter, get A.J. Brown back, that type of just addition, especially at this time of year when you got to start playing your best ball, is a positive. Now, the thing to me is, yes, they can compete, but their Achilles heel, which is my word for the day, will be themselves. I just saw them come into Pittsburgh, put up 20-some points in the first half, and then second half, turn the ball over 4 times and lose. So I think as long as they don't beat themselves, they have as good a chance as anybody to challenge Kansas City in the AFC for supremacy.
And Marc, I think what he's saying is take the ball out of the quarterback's hands, right? And it's got to be sort of a run game centric offense. So can you win that way in the playoffs?
Yeah, I'm not a believer in Tennessee. The Derrick Henry situation, as you saw, he's just like a franchise quarterback with his importance and how that team is run and how they're structured with him. And they've been winning, but they've been looking bad on offense. Let's just be honest. They have not looked good at all. And for grinding out these games and some of the teams that they're beating, that's going to be good enough. But come playoff time, to string together consecutive games where they have to score points. I mean, they're going to have to score. Their defense will just be asking them too much to just shut people down or get the opportunistic 4 turnovers a game to do it. The team I love, and I've been looking at this team the whole year, is Cincinnati. And that's because they have a franchise quarterback in Joe Burrow, who I think is going to be a top 5 quarterback in the league. And you saw what he just did last week, the depleted Ravens team. But one of the best running backs in the league in Joe Mixon, so they can run the ball. Oh, by the way, they got the best young receiving prospect that's come out in years in Jamar Chase. Oh, we shut him down. Let's T. Higgins, you go get 195, or Tyler Boyd, you catch an 85. They just have so many playmakers in that offense that they're just impossible to defend. And when I watch them, Joe Burrow is just getting more and more comfortable, where he's looking like the LSU Joe Burrow who set all the records, where they're just emptying everything out and he's just distributing it and making plays and just really lethal right now. But also on defense, they have playmakers as well, with Trey Hendrickson, who's, maybe the most underrated guy in the league on the defensive line, and a lot of opportunistic guys in the secondary. So when I look at the whole landscape of who can win it, Cincinnati is the biggest challenge, because they are so well balanced and they have so much talent. I'm always going to go back to the talent, and they've got so much talent. And really this week, this KC-Cincy game could be the de facto AFC championship game.
Yeah, and just to put a bow on this, I think a lot of people, Marc, look at them as the same old Bengals, right? A lot of people have sort of they keep thinking that. And I think back to Joe Burrow at LSU and how he was sort of a culture changer there. And I know it sounds weird because it's a powerhouse program, but it felt to me, and you guys both know this, having, worked the college game for so long, the culture at LSU was always win with your run game, throw the ball as little as you possibly can, and then let the defense take over. That's always what they've been. And Joe completely changed that, 100% changed that at LSU, and did it in a relatively short period of time. He was there 2 years. So is it fair to make that correlation maybe? Do you think that looking at what he did at LSU and how he changed them might make you think you might think this about the Bengals, but this dude can come in here and change a lot.
Yeah, and that's when you have a transcendent talent like him. That's what they do. People always say, well, they've never had such and such. Texas never had a quarterback. Well, until Patrick Mahomes came with this program. So Joe Burrow did that for LSU, and I think he's going to do that for the Bengals as well. He's already doing it. And when you have someone that talented, as you mentioned, he changes everything. He's transcendent, and you're going to see that. This is not the same old Bengals. They got a lot of talent. I worked for the network, went there for training camp, and just saw those guys. And, man, they can match up with anybody, player for player, skill-wise on offense. And, they're going to be hard to handle for a while. Those guys are young, 25, 22 years old. So this is a new era in Cincinnati.
And you just said it, and that's where I am. They are young and talented, but the key word is young. And if you look at their season, that youngness and inexperience has shown because they've gone out and laid some eggs. So will they be a contender? Absolutely. If we're saying this next year, I'm saying they are going to probably be the definite contender in the AFC. I think they're going to get in this year and get some learning experience, just like Buffalo that first year breaking in and that next year. And they're just going to steadily climb like the Bulls did with Jordan and then finally beat the Detroit Pistons like the Kansas City. But I don't think it's this year. But they're going to be around and making noise for years to come. And I said it the other day on a program, you are seeing the changing of the guard in the AFC North.
You can put this in the headline then. Former Bills general manager says that Joe Burrow is Michael Jordan, right? Like that's what you're saying, Doug?
I said the team. I didn't say he was Jordan. I said the team has to learn how to win and dethrone the Detroit Pistons. I didn't say anything about Jordan. I did not bring that up.
On your left, that's former Buffalo Bills general manager, currently an SVP with the XFL, relaunching in 2022. On your right, that's ex-Giants executive Marc Ross, now with the NFL Network. Appreciate you guys coming out.